Good morning on this Tuesday, May the 5th, 2021. Let it be known we have such a great show planned for you. We're talking baseball, we're talking books, we're talking life with the great Darryl Strawberry. But first, of course, our news headlines. This morning, in a story that proved as appalling as many of the racially motivated attacks on African Americans, and one that was relatively obscure, a South Carolina court sentenced Bobby Paul Edwards to a decade behind bars for the enslavement of Christopher Smith. Edwards is white and Smith is black. Edwards, who employed Smith at his J&J cafeteria in Conway, South Carolina from 2009 to 2014, has now been ordered to pay the former employee nearly $550,000 in restitution. A civil court judge ruled that Smith, who has intellectual disabilities, was forced to work for more than 100 hours a week without pay. The lawsuit filed noted that Smith was provided an apartment by Edwards during his employment, but the conditions were similar to his living in squalor. They were subhuman, his attorneys wrote. They said Edwards regularly subjected Smith to harsh treatment, including berating him with racial slurs and often threatened to do physical harm. According to multiple reports, Smith worked at J&J for more than 30 years. He began working at the restaurant when he was just 12 years old. When Edwards took over the business from his family, that's when the mistreatment of Smith began. His attorney said Edwards forced Smith to work 18-hour shifts for 6 days each week and 11-hour shifts on Sunday. The lawyer said Smith received just under $3,000 a year. The court initially ordered Edwards to pay $273,000 in unpaid wages, but an appeals court ruled just yesterday that Smith deserves $550,000. And now let's bring on our president and CEO, Dr. Ben Chavis. Good morning, Dr. Chavis.
Good morning, Stacy. How are you? And thank you for leading us off this morning for the headline news. And we have a great program this morning scheduled.
Absolutely. Dr. Chavis, and one other news item. Audrey Swatson is the youngest female commercial pilot in the country of Ghana, having obtained her commercial license at the age of 21. She is currently a first officer with Passion Air in Ghana. Audrey started pursuing her passion in aviation when she was 18 years old. She attended the Mach 1 Aviation Academy in South Africa for flight training, where she also had her first solo flight just 1 year later. She eventually obtained her commercial pilot license after completing a total of 210 hours that she has flown at the age, Dr. Chavis, of 21. Congratulations to Audrey.
Absolutely. It just shows you that whether in the United States or in Africa or anywhere in the diaspora, we have such talented Generation Z, such talented millennials, and we salute her for her accomplishment in the aviation history.
Absolutely. And just a quote from Audrey. She says, "Apart from God and my parents, I owe everything I am and everything I hope to be to school. Without the education I have received during my lifetime, the friends I have met and have networked with, the great teachers that have been there for me since day one, I would not be able to move on to a more positive place in life." What a story, Audrey Swatson. Congratulations from the Black Press of America. Dr. Chavis, this is one that I've been looking forward to this morning. And before we bring on our special guest, we have a very special video tribute to him. Let's take a look.
With the bases loaded, Joe Torre is going to go to his bench and call on Darryl Strawberry.
Well hit to left field.
To deep center.
And it drives to deep right field. It's going, and
gone.
A grand slam
For Darryl Strawberry.
for Darryl Strawberry.
He is one of a kind. You saw him in 4 different uniforms, right? New York Mets, New York Yankees, San Francisco Giants, Los Angeles Dodgers, all original New York teams. I believe he's the only one to ever do that. But if he's not, he's the only one to do it as well as he did. Let's bring on our special guest, none other than the great Darryl Strawberry. Good morning, Darryl.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
Good morning, Brother Strawberry. Thank you so much for taking time to come on with the Black Press of America. We salute you, and you're a great role model for generations to come.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to be with you guys. I'm glad you guys reached out to me, and we have a chance to talk about sports, life, and just everything that's going on in the nation.
Well, Daryl, let's start with the book, and it's so interesting because what you've been doing over the past number of years, turn your season around, how God transforms life. You have really been helping so many people, coaching people, life coaches. In fact, Daryl, the last time you and I ran into each other, you was actually mentoring and helping during a very, very trying time, the late, great Michael Jackson at Neverland Ranch. Tell us about your journey to being a life coach, a spiritual coach, if you will, to people, not just of Michael Jackson's stature, but all sorts of people.
Well, it's not easy. It's a transformation that, comes about a life, my life was broken and dysfunction, just like most people, that go through and come from, inner cities and never have a male figure in your life. I didn't have a father, so it was very challenging, for me. I just put on a uniform. I always said my pain led me to my greatness, but my greatness would eventually lead me to destructive behavior. And then I would have to look up and I would have to come and find a real relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. And my life completely changed from there. I sat for many years studying, and I became an evangelist, and then I started traveling the country, preaching the word of God, the gospel. And then I started helping people. I realized that so many people are hurting and lost, and I just want people to remember one thing: no one's a mistake. We only make a bunch of mistakes. And if we can get our younger generation and people to understand that you're not a mistake, no matter what your circumstances are, we just make a bunch of mistakes. And that empty hole that we try to fill on the inside, we try to fill it with all the wrong things. So if we fill it with, God's peace and love, we're able to do greater things, and we're able to help so many people.
Yeah, and they say that saying, life comes at you fast. Daryl, when you were in high school, life was coming at you really fast. Crenshaw High School, big expectations, not just from yourself, but from around the world. Everyone said, this kid, you were a teenager, and this kid was going to be the next Ted Williams. He was going to be the next Willie McCovey. A lot of pressure. And then the #1 pick in the draft by the New York Mets.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of expectations. And expectations are expectations. I always tell young people expectations are not who you are. Only expectations you should have is for yourself, not what everybody else put on you. And I think that's what it was to me coming into the league, coming into New York. I was this, the Black Ted Williams. I was this, the next Willie McCovey, like you said. And I got to a place where I just had to learn how to play. And I had to build a confidence in myself and believe in my own ability. Because one thing I do know is you cannot be anyone else. I mean, there's no one else. God has made you unique, and He doesn't make us all the same. We're all different. We all gonna have, a different walk and a different road. But I'm glad for my walk and my road. And people say, well, you could have been in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I probably could have been in the Hall of Fame had it not been for my demons and my trouble. But look at me now. I'm an evangelist. I probably would have never met Christ and be standing on the platform preaching, and large churches across this nation and encouraging people, about life and everything. So, it all works out in some kind of way. As long as we don't quit, we don't give up. I think that's the real key. Knowing yourself is so important instead of what others have or put expectations on you.
Yeah, and Dr. Chavis, you talk about overcoming. Daryl talked about his demons. They're well documented, run-ins with the law. But here he sits, mentoring folks, helping others. You can talk to Daryl about that as well, Dr. Chavis. You've helped so many in your career as well, starting from your time with Martin Luther King all the way through the civil rights movement, the NAACP, and of course here at the Black Press.
Well, thank you. And again, Brother Strawberry, we salute you for your progress and for your outstanding career. One of the things I wanted to ask you today, a lot of young people are facing all kinds of challenges with the Black Lives Matter movement. We have a number of athletes that are speaking out on social justice. From your perspective and from your ministry today, what message would you give to young people today as they strive not to get diverted by the contradictions of life, but as you said, finding yourself, finding your anchor, but at one time moving forward, keeping moving forward, not letting anything break your spirit. I think the generation, particularly in many of the urban areas today, are wondering about the future. What would be your message to inner city young people today?
My message would be from anybody that's coming from the inner city is, I know it's a deep struggle coming from the inner city, but you have to believe in yourself. And I think that's, where where our young people struggle a lot with believing in themselves. And what I mean by that is don't be a follower, be a leader, don't follow the crowd. I think, so many followed the crowd. Even in my days of growing up, it was either I was going to go on the streets or I was going to go to school and participate in playing sports. And I think a lot of young kids don't do that today. I think they follow the wrong role models. I think you need to get the right role models, because when I was growing up, I was a baseball fan, and I would always watch the Dodgers and the Cincinnati Reds, and I got to see all these great players playing. And if that's your dream, whatever it may be, go after your dream. Don't let the people that you see that think are doing things, because they're making money and, and they got this different look, that they have it all together. Because I think our young people get lost in that, and a lot of them get into, dealing drugs and want to be like those guys and have the fancy stuff. And then you end up losing your life at such an early age. We shouldn't have so many young Black kids losing their life at such an early age.
Very good. That's words of wisdom. Thank you so much. We represent the Black press, Brother Strawberry. How important it is from your perspective and your career. There's mainstream media, and then there's media that's deeply rooted in our communities. That's who we represent. I'm so glad to have you on the program. But can you tell us, from your perspective, the importance of having the Black press?
Oh, it's so important. We should have had this long time ago, for African Americans. And we just never had that. Of course, everyone, of color, that go through sports like I did when I was young and get in the minor leagues. You have to play deep in the South, and you hear a lot of racial things and saying there's nowhere to turn. You wonder who you turn to, and you just got to remember. One thing I did remember was where I actually did come from. My mother. She taught me the principles, the values of making me understand of believing in myself, no matter what anyone had to say. Towards you. And I think I learned that, through my process of going through baseball and the different challenges that I had to face, and, I'm just so glad you have a platform like this. And it gives you the opportunity, for anyone, be able to come out and really speak and talk about the trials and tribulations that have been in this nation for a very long time. It's not just now. I think what's happening now, you just get more visible. You get to see it now, because of the fact, you have social media outlets and you have all these different outlets where people can see it. And back in the days, you couldn't see it.
Darryl, we're gonna talk a little baseball, but let's talk. Let me ask you about a little bit more about the book, though, because the book is not just your first book. What made you come up with this one? Where did you begin here in this particular book? Because it seems this one is as profound as the other ones. Turn Your Season Around.
Well, this book, I think, was written from deep down in my belly, from all the things that I learned in life and experienced in life and had to go through in life. And then really be able to put some biblical principles and have a real solid foundation. Because one thing I do know, guys, is if you build your foundation on the sand, and when the wind comes and the storm comes, it's going to blow it away. If you don't build a foundation on the rock, which is the word of God, you don't really have a chance. We're living in a time that I wrote this book in the midst of a pandemic. Did I know it was going to be a pandemic? No. What a crisis and the challenge that we all had to go through. And in writing this book, and coming together with my writer, I just wanted to put some real principles in there, practical, biblical principles in there that would help encourage anyone to tell you where you're at and how you can get to the next level in your life and get the next. And the next level I talk about is freedom, and the peace that it comes from. It comes from God. It doesn't come from man. Everybody's searching for man to fix everything. They can't fix you inside. It's only God that can fix you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Daryl, I'm going to take you back to after the draft, going to the minor leagues, the draft in 1980, and then going to the minor leagues, and of course coming up to the New York Mets in 1983. I remember your first game, and it wasn't pretty, except for one moment. Mario Soto, right? What was that like? Because he was at the time, he was sort of, and I'm not comparing, I guess I am comparing him, but in a way to Doc Gooden, right? He threw hard. Only Doc was better, but he threw hard. He was at the time one of baseball's premier right-handers. What was that like coming up to Shea and playing against the Cincinnati Reds?
Well, I could tell you it wasn't easy with all the expectation and hype. Of course, facing him, he had a great changeup. Of course, he threw hard, but he had a great changeup too. And he got me, he got me a couple times. He struck me out a couple times, and I hit a foul ball that almost went out, and everybody went crazy and like, oh wow, And I really learned my lesson, facing Soto when I first came up, and after that, I remember I faced him every time opening day when we played the Reds, and I would kill him, from now on. So it's a lesson that you're either going to learn or you don't. And baseball is a learning curve too, just like life is. And you take the challenge of it. Everything is not going to be good immediately for you. But if you stick with it, whatever it is in life, I don't care whatever anyone's going through, and if you stick with it and you do not quit, because you never know the miracle that can happen on the other side from not quitting. So I always tell people, don't quit, whatever it may be. You may go through some tough times, just don't give up.
Yeah. And Daryl, how about this? So you was drafted by the Mets. Tell me the turning point for that franchise. It was a woebegone franchise at the time. You were drafted. They made the trade for George Foster. They made the signing before the 1982 season. And then Doc comes along in 83, you in 84, and then the trade for Gary Carter in 85. And of course, you win the World Series in 86. You should have won more, but that's a different story. But of those five things, Daryl, what was the biggest in your view? Because in my view, and I'll start off by telling you, in my view, the biggest turning point may have been the George Foster move. He didn't pan out. He wasn't the 52 homer big red machine George Foster, but he brought credibility to the New York Mets. And then you guys came along. I remember they got rid of all the older pitchers, Mike Torres, Ed Figueroa, and those guys, and even Tom Seaver was exiled again, and brought in the young guns like Doc and made the trade for Darling. What was for you, Daryl, the biggest move?
Well, I think the biggest move was the beginning.
I think we're losing Daryl Strawberry. We're trying to cover a little baseball for Mets fans, but he also played for the New York Yankees, the San Francisco Giants, and the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'll pepper some of those in as well. Are you back?
He's back. Mm-hmm.
I'm back.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I think the biggest thing that really changed that organization, like you said, was younger players started to come up. I came up in 83, and it was a last place team. And Davey Johnson took over as a manager. And, Doc came up in 84. I won the Rookie of the Year 83. He comes and win in 84 back to back. He was 19. I was 21. So there were two young, exciting African-American players, which was coming to the big leagues and playing in Queens. And, you had Mookie Wilson was there. Of course, George Foster, like you said, the things didn't work out well there, but, it gave them credibility, to start, seeing players of color coming to Queens and believing in them. And I think what happened was the manager, Davey Johnson, believed in myself, and he believed in Doc, and we were young, and of course the general manager didn't think we should be in the big leagues at the time because of all the pressures of playing in New York was real, and some of those things were true, but at the same time we went on to excel and win, and like you said, we got Gary Carter, who was just a wonderful person, and of faith that brought to the team that really showed a lot of guys how live a different way if you really wanted it. And Mookie was a prime example too. So it was just a whole thing of from a shift from a last place team to a team that just started to storm forward. Because of the general manager Frank Cashin and also the manager Davey Johnson.
Yeah, and Daryl, 1988, you by far was the most valuable player, but you didn't win the award. You said earlier about the Hall of Fame. At this point, it doesn't matter. But does that still kind of stick with you, 1988? I think Daryl has frozen up again.
1988 was a tremendous year. Yeah, there you go. 1988 was a great year. Of course, I know I should have won. It shouldn't have even been close. It shouldn't have even been close for the National League MVP. But I had a bit of taste in my mouth for a very long time. But I got over it and I moved on with life. And life has some valleys. You're going to go through some valleys of things. And I went through some valleys of things. As far as being selected for the MVP, and it didn't happen. So I had to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and then you went home. A couple of years later, you went home. You decided to go sign with the Dodgers. And one of the things, Daryl, when you took that contract with the Dodgers, at the time it was a $20 million contract around that neighborhood. And it was all about, people thought it was all about, passing Jose Canseco's contract at the time. But for you, it was all about going home. How much of a mistake, Daryl, was that, going home?
Well, I think it really turned out to be a big one because of the fact I didn't really get an offer from the Mets. They were offering something like a 3-year deal at that time, and I was really heartbroken. The fact that after all those years that I played there, that I would have to be leaving New York. And I just remember, knowing that the Yankees were on the other side of town, and I didn't really think about it because the boss, he wasn't there. George, he wasn't there at the time, and he reminded me had he not been suspended when I became a free agent, he would have swooped me up, and brought me to the Yankees, at that point in time. And, but going back to LA, I thought, that was the place for me, but it was a lot different, playing there than it was in New York. Cause you used to, I spent 8 years in New York. So you understand, what kind of fans you have, that's going to be there all the time, rooting you on or booing you. And, LA was just a little bit more conservative, laid back, fans come late and leave early, and I wasn't used to that. It had nothing to do with fans, but I just thought that was different than what it was in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned George Steinbrenner not being there when you became a free agent the first time, because we know that $20 million would have probably been 40 at that. George would have done whatever he could to get you over there to the Bronx, but eventually he did get you to the Bronx.
Yeah, he did, and it was great.
One World Series.
Won 3 over there. It was great to be over there with all those guys and, be able to have, just a fun time, with Joe Torre and, guys like Jeter, Bernie, and, Tino O'Neill, all those guys, were great, just great teammates, and of course, Rivera being the closer he was. So, it's just a great time in my career to be able to play around such great people.
You even got Doc over there for 1 year. Yeah. I think it was 96.
Yeah, I forgot Doc was over there. Doc played with me on the Mets, and David Cohn was over there. He played with me on the Mets. So we were kind of switching across, going from Queens to the Bronx, to win over there on that side.
Yeah, and, our producer's showing the photo that, Daryl, prior to us going on this morning, I was talking to you about the swing you had. No better swing. I think the only comparable swing in baseball that I can remember anyway is Ken Griffey Jr. You hit balls, Dr. Chavis. Daryl hit balls that might still be going right now. Today's players, they swing for home runs. You guys didn't, but yet you hit some of the more majestic home runs that we'd ever seen.
Well, I think it's a big difference in playing today. I think more not like the fundamentals of playing baseball, just hitting the baseball and not uplifting and swinging up. I never tried to hit the ball at the ballpark. All I ever tried to do is hit the ball hard. And if you hit it hard, it'll take care of itself.
Yeah, one of our viewers, Daryl, David Youngblood, is asking, would you encourage high school students to go straight into professional leagues?
No, more likely not. I would say go to college if you can, to get some life experience. Baseball is going to still be there. I think a lot of young players think they're coming out of high school. If you're not ready for moving to the big leagues quickly, I think you should spend more time in college so you can get a better foundation. Because if you a player that is going to move you fast, like me, I was in the big leagues in 2.5 years. It's not a lot of players that go from high school and then it'd be in the big leagues 2.5 years.
Yeah, and before I turn it back to you, Dr. Chavis, Daryl, you mentioned earlier about this platform, the Black Press's virtual platform being relatively new, but the Black Press has been around 194 years since before the end of slavery, and the Black Press is celebrating its 194th year this year at our annual convention. Just wanted to see if we can get a word of congratulations from Daryl Strawberry to the Black Press. Dr. Chavis, our president and CEO, Karen Carter Richards, our chair, our national chair in Houston. Any word of congratulations you can give would be greatly appreciated, Daryl.
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations on all that you guys been doing. And like I said, the platform is really important, and it's really important in these times, for this nation and for African Americans to understand who we are and what we are. We were created for good. All of us are created for good, and we need to be treated that way.
Absolutely. Dr. Chavis, your closing thoughts with Daryl Strawberry?
Well, thank you. And Brother Strawberry, I want you to know that the home runs that you hit, those balls are still flying. You're still hitting home runs now, particularly with your new book and also with your ministry. I think the transition from professional sports to ministry is a pathway to greater success. And so we salute you. And if there's ever a great role model, you are, not only for African-American youth, but for all youth. As you said earlier in the program, there's no human life without adversity. The thing is, we take our adversities, we take our trials and tribulations, and we become stronger as a result, not weaker. And you certainly are an example of that. And we just want to salute you on behalf of the Black Press of America.
Yeah, and buy the new book. It's really an interesting read. Turn Your Season Around: How God Transforms Your Life, by Daryl Strawberry, who's already a New York Times best-selling author. Daryl, it is such a privilege to have you. Don't forget, everyone, to register for the upcoming NNPA virtual convention, which takes place from June 23rd to June 26th at www.virtualnnpa2021.com. And you can really see more of what the Black Press does at that convention. Let it be known, never allow the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. Thanks again to Daryl Strawberry, and we will see you all tomorrow.